The Draconian Empire had conquered 400 worlds. Their scales were black as the void between stars. Their teeth could tear through metal. Their warriors, trained from birth to kill without mercy. When the Third Armada departed for the newly discovered world called Earth, no one expected anything but total victory. Grand Admiral stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Flame. Around him, 400 warships moved in perfect formation. Nearly 2 million soldiers waited in their transport vessels, eager for battle. The Draconians had studied the target world for months. Earth was a death world filled with dangerous animals and unpredictable weather. The natives were soft-skinned creatures who lived barely a century. They had primitive technology. They fought among themselves constantly. They would fall within days. Admiral said, his communications officer, "We are entering the Sol system. All ships report ready for conquest." Bared his fangs in what passed for a smile among his kind. Begin standard approach. Launch reconnaissance drones. I want full scans of their defensive capabilities before we arrive. Drones shot forward, racing toward the blue and green world that hung in the darkness ahead. Watched the data streams. With growing confidence, the humans had satellites, but they were primitive things. They had weapons, but nothing that could scratch Draconian armor. They had ships, but those ships had never left their own star system. This conquest would bring him great honor. The first drone reached Earth's orbit. It sent back images of cities sprawling across continents, billions of life forms, infrastructure that would be useful once the population was enslaved. Studied the data with satisfaction. Then the drone's signal vanished. Technical malfunction, said the sensor officer. Launching secondary drone. The second drone reached the same position. Its signal also vanished. Felt the first hint of unease. Send a full reconnaissance wing. 20 drones spread formation. 20 drones entered Earth's orbital space. For 3 seconds, they transmitted perfect data. Then all 20 signals died at exactly the same moment. The bridge fell silent. Draconian officers exchanged glances. Equipment did not fail like this, not all at once, not so precisely. Continue approach ordered. Raise shields to maximum. Arm all weapons. Whatever the humans have done, it will not save them. The Third Armada entered Earth's orbit on the morning of what the humans called Tuesday. Watched the planet rotate beneath his fleet. Snorts. He could see the cities clearly now. He could see the oceans and the mountains and the green forests. Everything looked peaceful. Everything looked normal. But something felt wrong. Admiral, said the sensor officer, his voice uncertain. I'm detecting anomalous readings. Explain. There are structures on the surface that were not visible from long range. Large structures. They appear and disappear from our sensors. I cannot explain it. Lean forward. Show me. The main screen flickered. For a moment saw something that made his blood run cold. Beneath one of the oceans, a structure stretched for hundreds of kilometers. It glowed with energy signatures that his computer could not identify. Then it vanished, replaced by nothing but water. That is impossible, whispered the sensor officer. Our reading showed no advanced technology. They hid it. Realized they knew we were watching. They hid everything before he could give another order. Every screen on every ship in the fleet displayed the same message. It appeared in perfect Draconian script, as if the humans had studied their language for years. You were given a choice. You chose poorly. The lights on the bridge flickered. The hum of the engines changed pitch, heard. Screaming from somewhere deep in the ship. He reached for his communicator to contact the other vessels, but the device crumbled to dust in his hand. All ships, he roared, report status. No response came. They showed his fleet hanging motionless in space. No weapons fired, no engines burned. 400 warships sat helpless while something moved between them, could not see what it was. He caught glimpses at the edge of his vision, shadows that moved wrong, shapes that hurt his mind to perceive. His warriors were the most feared in the galaxy. They had never known terror. Now they learned the first ship to die was the Crimson Claw. It did not explode. It did not burn. It simply ceased to exist. One moment it hung in space. The next moment there was nothing but empty void, no debris, no escape pods, no trace that a vessel carrying 5,000 Draconians had ever existed. More ships followed. Some vanished like the first. Others were torn apart by forces that left no marks. A few were crushed into spheres no larger than a Draconian's fist, their crews compressed into something that could no longer be called matter. Watched his fleet die. He watched 2 million soldiers vanish without firing a single shot. He tried to pray to the old gods, but the words would not come. The old gods had no power here. Nothing had power here except the beings who called this death world home. The eternal flame was the last ship remaining, stood alone on his bridge. His crew had disappeared, not died, disappeared. Their stations were empty. Their equipment sat untouched. They had simply stopped existing. Figure appeared before him. It looked human but knew it was not. Its eyes held something ancient and terrible. Its smile carried the weight of countless years. You were warned, the figure said. Its voice came from everywhere and nowhere. Your scouts detected our decoy technology. They reported that we were primitive. They did not report what we wanted them to see because we made them see it. We gave you every chance to turn back. We sent dreams to your soldiers, nightmares of what waited here. We whispered in your admiral's mind, telling him to choose another world. You ignored everything. Tried to speak. His throat would not work. We do not enjoy killing, the figure continued. We learned long ago what death truly costs. We remember our own wars, our own atrocities. We swore never to become conquerors again, but we also swore to protect our home. You came here to enslave us. You came here to kill our children and steal our world. So we did what we had to do. The figure stepped closer, felt his mind cracking under the weight of its presence. You will live, it said. We need someone to carry a message. Go back to your empire. Tell them what happened here. Tell them that Earth is not to be touched. Tell them that we are being merciful by letting you leave, and tell them this. We have watched the galaxy for a very long time. We know every species that sails between the stars. We know their strengths and their weaknesses. We know their dreams and their fears. If anyone comes here again with hostile intent, we will not stop with their fleet. We will find their colonies. We will erase them so completely that the universe itself will forget they existed. The figure vanished, found himself in an escape pod, hurtling away from the Sol system at impossible speed. Behind him, the last traces of the Third Armada faded into nothing. When the rescue ships found him 3 weeks Later, his scales had turned completely. White, he could not stop shaking. He could not eat or sleep. He could only whisper one phrase over and over until his mind finally broke completely. They were waiting. They were always waiting. The Draconian Empire received his message. They sealed all records of the Third Armada. They marked Earth on their star charts with a single word. Forbidden, but empires fall. Records are lost, warnings are forgotten, and 50 years later, a new generation would ignore everything the Draconians had tried to tell them. 50 years passed like a heartbeat for the galaxy. The Draconian Empire collapsed from within. Without their greatest fleet, without their finest warriors, their enemies grew bold. One by one, their conquered worlds rebelled. The species that had terrorized 1,000 star systems became refugees, scattered across the void. No one mourned them. No one asked what had destroyed them. The Galactic Council met in their great chamber on the station called Harmony Prime. Representatives from 300 species gathered to discuss trade routes and territorial disputes. They were proud of their civilization. They believed they had achieved lasting peace. They had forgotten that peace often exists only because something more powerful allows it. Ambassador of the stood before the assembly. Though a young species, barely 2 centuries old as a space faring civilization, they were tall and slender with silver skin that shimmered in the light. They were ambitious. They believed they were destined for greatness. Honored representative said, his voice carrying across the vast chamber, I come before you today with a proposal. For 50 years the world called Earth has remained quarantined. Our star charts mark it as an anomaly. Our ships are forbidden from approaching. But I ask you why? Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Elder representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The Draconians claimed they lost a fleet. There continued, but the Draconians were arrogant fools who overextended their empire. Perhaps they simply destroyed themselves through incompetence. Perhaps they invented the story to hide their shame. We have no proof that anything unusual exists on Earth. An ancient creature rose from the back of the chamber. Ambassador belonged to a species so old that no one remembered their true name. His body was covered in scales that had faded to gray over countless. His eyes held memories of civilizations that had risen and fallen before the learned to make fire. I was there, said his voice like grinding stone. I saw the rescue ships return with the Draconian survivor. I watched his mind break as he tried to describe what he witnessed. This is not a story. This is not incompetence. Something lives on Earth, something ancient, something terrible. We leave them alone because the alternative is extinction. Smiled politely, with respect. Ambassador, you speak of events from half a century ago. Perhaps the Draconians encountered a natural phenomenon they could not understand. Perhaps the survivor in LT Unk and GT's madness created false memories. We cannot base policy on the ravings of a broken mind. You did not see his eyes, replied. You did not hear him scream. The debate continued for hours. The elder species spoke of caution and patience. They shared fragments of recovered Draconian data showing impossible readings. They warned that some mysteries were better left unsolved, but the younger species sided with they wanted resources. They wanted new worlds to colonize. Earth was a perfect candidate, and they were tired of letting fear hold them back. In the end, the council voted. Motion passed by a narrow margin. Diplomatic mission would be sent to Earth, not a military force, but a peaceful delegation. Surely whatever had defeated the Draconians would respond differently to an offer of friendship. Ambassador volunteered to lead the mission. Personally, 12 ships were prepared, carrying the finest diplomats from a dozen species. They loaded their vessels with gifts and cultural artifacts. They practiced speeches of peace and cooperation. They truly believed they were doing something noble. Elder watched them depart from the observation deck of Harmony Prime. His assistant stood beside him, young and curious. "Do you think they will succeed?" the assistant asked. "No," answered, "but perhaps they will survive. Perhaps the humans will show mercy to fools who come in peace rather than war." "You call them humans? You speak as if you know something about them." Was silent for a long moment. "Long ago, before my species learned to travel between stars, we received a message. It came from across the galaxy, transmitted through means we could not understand. The message was simple. It said, 'You are not alone, but you are not ready. Grow, learn, become worthy of the stars, and when you do, we will be waiting.'" We spent 10,000 years wondering who sent that message. Now I believe I know. The humans, they have been watching us since before we had a word for watching. They are older than any species in this council. They are more powerful than any weapon we can imagine, and they want only one thing: to be left alone, turned away from the window. They will not listen. The young never do, but perhaps when they return, broken and terrified, the council will finally understand. The diplomatic fleet traveled for 3 weeks. Ambassador used the time to refine his speeches. He imagined himself as the hero who would bring Earth into the galactic community. He dreamed of statues raised in his honor, of his name spoken with reverence for generations to come. The Sol system appeared on their sensors like any other star. 8 planets orbited a yellow sun. The 3rd planet showed signs of life. Everything looked normal. Everything looked safe. Beginning approach to Earth, announced the fleet commander. All ships report ready. They passed the outer planets without incident. They passed the asteroid belt. They entered the inner system, drawing closer to the blue and green world that had haunted Draconian nightmares for 50 years. Earth hung before them, beautiful and serene. Studied it through he saw oceans and continents. He saw clouds swirling over mountain ranges. He saw nothing that suggested advanced technology. Sensor readings confirmed primitive civilization, reported his science officer. They have satellites, but nothing capable of interstellar travel. Their communications are basic electromagnetic signals. I see no evidence of the threat the Draconians described. Felt vindication surge through him. He had been right. The Draconians had lied or exaggerated. Earth was just another primitive world waiting to be welcomed into galactic society. "Open a channel," he ordered. "Broadcast our peaceful intentions on all frequencies." The communications officer worked her console. "Channel open." Ambassador stepped forward, straightening his robes. "People of Earth, I am of the Galactic Council. We come in peace, seeking friendship and understanding. We." Every light on every ship went dark. Every console powered down. Every engine fell silent. 12 vessels drifted helplessly in the void, their crews suddenly trapped in darkness. Then the screens flickered back to life. But instead of showing sensor data or communication logs, they displayed a single face. It was human male, middle-aged by their species standards. His expression was neither hostile nor welcoming. It was simply tired, like a parent dealing with a child who refused to learn. "You were warned," the human said. His voice did not come through the speakers. It appeared directly in the minds of every being in the fleet, clear and undeniable. The Draconians were warned. They did not listen. "Now you have come, and you have ignored every sign we left for you," found his voice. "We mean no harm. We come in peace. You come in ignorance," the human replied. "You assume that because we have not conquered the galaxy, we cannot. You assume that because we hide, we are weak. You understand nothing." The human's eyes seemed to look directly at, though he was only an image on a screen. "Turn back now. Tell your council that Earth is not a mystery to be solved. We are not a primitive species waiting for enlightenment. We are something far older and far more dangerous than any of you can imagine. Leave, never return. There will be no second chance." The screens went dark. Power returned to the ship's navigation systems showed a course plotted back to Harmony. Prime stood frozen on his bridge. His crew stared at him, waiting for orders. His hands trembled. His silver skin had gone pale. He thought of the Draconian survivor, driven mad by what he witnessed. He thought of elders' warnings. He thought of his dreams of glory and recognition. Then he thought of his family, his children, his world. "Follow the course," he whispered. "Take us home." The diplomatic fleet turned away from Earth. Behind them, the blue planet hung silent and peaceful in the darkness. But somewhere beneath those oceans, in chambers that no sensor could detect, ancient beings watched them go. They noted the ship signatures, the species represented, the diplomatic codes used. They added this information to a database that contained the complete history of every spacefaring civilization in the galaxy, and they waited as they had waited for thousands of years for the next visitor who would not heed their warnings. Ambassador did not follow orders. He did not return home. The human's words echoed in his mind, and with them came a burning curiosity that overpowered his fear. He had spent his entire career seeking knowledge he could not turn away from. The greatest mystery the galaxy had ever known. "Hold position," he commanded. "We are not leaving until we understand what we are dealing with." His officers exchanged frightened glances. "Ambassador," the warning was clear. "We should leave before what interrupted. They could have destroyed us already. They chose to let us go. That means they are willing to communicate. That means there is hope for dialogue." He opened a channel to the rest of the fleet. 3 ships immediately broke formation and fled toward the edge of the system. The remaining 8 stayed, their crews torn between duty and terror. Broadcast his message toward Earth. "I understand your desire for isolation, but the galaxy has changed. The centuries you have watched us, war threatens multiple sectors. Species are dying. If you possess the knowledge and power you claim, you could help us. Please let us talk." For 10 long minutes, nothing happened. Began to wonder if he had made a fatal mistake. Then his ship lurched, not from weapons fire or engine failure. The vessel simply moved, drawn by forces that the instruments could not measure through the watched Earth grow. Larger, they were being pulled toward the planet's surface. All hands prepare. For landing, he announced, keeping his voice steady. It appears we have been granted an audience. The ship descended through clouds and over oceans. It passed mountains and forests, and cities that looked no different from any primitive civilization. Then the sea opened beneath them. A hole appeared in the water itself, revealing a tunnel of glowing light that stretched down into darkness. They descended for several minutes. Pressure should have crushed them. Darkness should have been absolute, but the ship remained intact, protected by technology that could not begin to understand. Finally, they emerged into a vast underground chamber. Had seen wonders in his travels. He had visited the crystal towers of and the singing caves of more. Nothing compared to what lay before him. The chamber stretched for hundreds of kilometers in every direction. Structures rose from the floor like mountains glowing with soft light. Vehicles moved through the air without visible propulsion. Gardens filled with plants from 1,000 worlds created forests of impossible beauty, and everywhere humans walked and worked and lived, going about their daily existence as if this underground paradise were nothing remarkable. The ship landed on a platform near the chamber's center. Stepped out alone, leaving his guards behind. A human woman waited for him. She appeared young, perhaps 30 years by their standards, but her eyes told a different story. Those eyes had seen civilizations rise and fall. Those eyes carried the weight of ages. "I'm called Sarah," she said. "I speak for the Council of Earth. You showed courage by staying, or perhaps foolishness. We have not decided which." "I seek only understanding," replied the galaxy. "Knows nothing of your true nature. We thought you were primitive, isolated, forgotten. Now I see how wrong we were." Sarah smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "You see only what we allow you to see." Snorts, "This chamber is impressive to your eyes, but it is nothing. A small settlement, a place where we keep those who remember the old ways." She gestured for him to follow. "Come, you wanted answers. You will have them. Whether you can bear them is another matter." They walked through the underground city. Humans nodded politely as they passed, but none seemed surprised by the alien ambassador in their midst. Children played in parks filled with flowers that glowed like stars. Artists created works that seemed to shift and change when viewed from different angles. Everything spoke of a civilization that had advanced beyond anything the galaxy could imagine. "How long?" asked. "How long have you been hiding?" "We stopped hiding approximately 12,000 years ago," Sarah answered. "Before that, we were scattered across this galaxy and several others. We built empires that spanned millions of worlds. We created technologies that could reshape reality itself, and then we went to war." They entered a building that appeared small from outside but opened into a vast museum. The walls displayed images of destruction on a scale that made stomach turn. Planets cracked like eggs, stars consumed by artificial black holes, entire species erased from existence by weapons that targeted their genetic structure. Humanity fought itself. Sarah continued. Different factions, different beliefs, different visions of what we should become. The war lasted for 300 years. When it ended, 90% of all humans were dead. Most of our colonies were destroyed. I was a poisoned ruin. We had come within a breath of total extinction. I am sorry, whispered. Do not be sorry for us, be sorry for the hundreds of alien civilizations we destroyed as collateral damage, be sorry for the species who no longer exist, because they live too close to one of our battlefields, be sorry for the wounds we left on the fabric of reality itself, wounds that have not fully healed even after all these. They stopped before a display that showed Earth as it had been during the war. The surface was burned black. The oceans had boiled away. Nothing lived, except in deep shelters beneath the ground. The survivors made a choice. Sarah said, we would rebuild, but we would never again inflict our power on others. We would hide ourselves away, repair our world, and watch the galaxy from afar. When new species developed, we would let them grow at their own pace. We would not conquer, we would not guide, we would simply exist, keeping our terrible knowledge locked away where it could not hurt anyone but they. Draconians. The Draconians came to enslave us. They came to kill our children and steal our world. We gave them every chance to turn back. We sent them visions and warnings. We revealed just enough of our power to frighten any sensible species into retreat. They ignored everything. Sarah's expression hardened. So we did what we had to do. We erased them from existence, every ship, every soldier, every trace. We did it in seconds. We did it without joy, without anger, without satisfaction. We did it because they left us no choice. Understood. Now the Draconians had not been defeated by superior weapons or clever tactics. They had been removed from reality by beings who could reshape the universe itself. The Third Armada had not died, it had simply ceased to exist, as if it had never been. Why tell me this? He asked. Why not simply destroy us as you destroyed them? Because you came in peace, Sarah replied. Because you stayed when you could have fled. Because there is a small chance that you might actually learn from what you see here, and because we are tired of killing. She led him to a window overlooking the underground city. Millions of humans went about their lives below, unaware or uncaring of the alien visitor in their midst. We could rule the galaxy, Sarah said. We could establish an empire that would last until the stars burned out. We have the power, we have the technology, we have the numbers hidden across 1,000 secret worlds. But we remember what we once were. We remember the horrors we committed. We will not become that again. What do you want? Asked. If not power, if not influence, what do you want from the galaxy? Sarah was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was heavy with something like grief. We want to be forgotten. We want to live in peace, tending our gardens and teaching our children and remembering the dead. We want the galaxy to grow and flourish without our interference. We want to atone for our sins by doing nothing, being nothing, asking for nothing. She turned to face him. But species like yours will not allow that. You see a mystery and you must solve it. You see power and you must possess it. You will keep coming generation after generation until you finally force us to do something we have sworn never to do again. She reached into her robes in a small object. It was a scale black as void, perfectly preserved. Take this to your council, she said. Tell them what you have seen. Tell them we are being merciful. Tell them this is the only warning they will receive, and tell them that if anyone threatens Earth again, we will not stop with their fleet. We will find we will find their colonies. we will erase them so completely that the universe itself will forget they existed. Took the scale with trembling hands. It was cold, far colder than it should have been. He could feel the weight of 2,000,000 lives pressed into its surface. I will tell them, he promised. I will make them understand. No, Sarah said sadly, you will not. But we have learned to hope anyway. Next moment was standing on his ship's bridge. The vessel was already moving, climbing up through the ocean tunnel, toward open space. Through the he watched Earth shrink into the distance. In his hand, he still held the Draconian scale. He carried it with him all the way home, knowing that Sarah was right. The council would not understand. They could not understand. They would hear his words and see his evidence, and still they would not believe, and eventually, inevitably, they would send ships back to Earth. He could only pray that mercy would survive long enough to give them one more chance. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so silent. 300 representatives sat motionless as Ambassador finished his report. The holographic recordings played on the central display showing the underground city, the Museum of Horrors, the human woman called Sarah delivering her warning. The Draconian scale sat on a pedestal before the assembly, cold and undeniable. Elder spoke first. Now you understand. Now you see why we warned you. The humans are not a primitive species to be studied. They are the survivors of a catastrophe we cannot imagine. They possess power beyond anything in our experience, and they want only to be left alone. This changes nothing, said a voice from the back of the chamber. All eyes turned to General Vex of the Empire. He was a massive creature covered in armored plates built for war. His species had risen to prominence in the centuries since the Draconian collapse. They controlled 200 worlds and commanded the largest military in the council. You show us recordings that could easily be fabricated. Vex continued. You bring us a scale that proves only that the Draconians once existed. You expect us to believe that a single species hidden on one small world possesses the power to threaten the entire galaxy. Stepped forward. I saw it with my own eyes. I felt their technology move my ship across space. They could have killed us at any moment. They chose mercy, or they chose deception. Perhaps they are powerful, but not as powerful as they claim. Perhaps they hide because they know that a united galactic fleet could destroy them. Perhaps this entire display was designed to frighten us into submission. Murmurs spread through the assembly, watched in dismay as representatives nodded along with Vex's words. Fear was giving way to pride. The shock of his report was fading. The ancient pattern of galactic politics was reasserting itself. You are making a terrible mistake. Warned, I am protecting our interests. Vex replied, think about what you are suggesting. A species that can defeat any fleet that has watched us for thousands of years, that possesses technology beyond our understanding. If this is true, then they are the greatest threat the galaxy has ever faced. Can we really afford to leave such power unchecked? What happens when they decide they no longer want to be left alone? What happens when they choose to stop hiding? The ambassador stood beside his general. My government proposes immediate action. We must strike before the humans have a chance to prepare. If we act together, pooling our fleets and resources, we can eliminate this threat once and for all. You are proposing war. Said war against a species that could have destroyed us all and chose not to. I am proposing survival. The strong do not beg for mercy. The strong take what they need. The debate raged for 3 days. Elder species pleaded for caution. Younger species demanded action. Fear and pride battled across the chamber floor, and slowly, inevitably, pride began to win. In the end, 12 species agreed to join the coalition. They would assemble their fleets in secret, hiding their preparations from any human observers. They would strike hard and fast, overwhelming Earth's defenses. Before the humans could react, it would be the largest military operation. Galactic history. Ambassador resigned from his position the day the vote passed. He returned to his and spent his remaining years writing warnings that no one would read. He died peacefully in his sleep 30 years before the coalition fleet launched. Perhaps that was a mercy. Elder did not resign. He remained at his post, watching the preparations unfold with growing dread. He sent messages to every elder species he could reach, begging them to intervene. None would act against the coalition openly. The political cost was too high. On the day the fleet departed, stood alone on the observation deck of Harmony Prime. 10,000 warships from 12 species moved in formation toward the Sol system. They carried weapons that could crack continents and soldiers bred for conquest. They believed themselves unstoppable, whispered a prayer to gods he had stopped believing in long ago. Then he went to his quarters and began recording his final testament. Someone would need to know the truth when the survivors returned. If any survived, the coalition fleet traveled for 6 weeks. They maintained strict communication silence, using only quantum encrypted channels that they believed were undetectable. Their commanders refined their battle plans. Their soldiers trained and prepared. Confidence grew with each passing day. General Vex stood on the bridge of his flagship, surrounded by officers from half the galaxy. He had been chosen to lead this historic mission. His name would be remembered for generations. He would be the one who broke humanity's power and opened Earth to colonization. Entering the Sol system, announced his navigation officer. All ships report ready for combat. The fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. 10,000 vessels bristling with weapons, their crews eager for battle. Before them hung the blue and green world that had haunted galactic nightmares for over a century. Vex studied the planet with cold satisfaction. Sensor sweep, find their defenses. Scanning general, I am detecting nothing. No orbital platforms, no defensive satellites, no fleet. The planet appears completely undefended. Laughter rippled through the bridge. Other commanders reported the same findings. Earth hung naked and vulnerable before the greatest armada ever assembled. They were bluffing. Vex declared all that talk of terrible power, and they cannot even field a defense force. Begin orbital bombardment. Level their cities. Let them see what happens to species that threaten the Empire. Weapons powered up across the fleet. Targeting computers locked onto the major population centers below. Fingers hovered over firing controls. Then the sun flickered. It was not a solar flare. It was not a technical glitch in the sensors. The sun itself dimmed for a fraction of a second, as if something had drawn power from a star. Every screen on every ship went dark. Every weapon powered down, every engine fell silent. 10,000 warships hung motionless in space, their crews suddenly helpless. What is happening? Vex demanded. Someone report. No one could respond, their voices still worked, but their technology did not. They could only watch as something impossible unfolded before them. A human appeared on the bridge, not on a screen, not as a hologram, a real physical human, standing among them as if she had always been there. Vex recognized her from ambassador's recordings. The woman called Sarah. You were warned, she said. Her voice carried no anger, no satisfaction, no emotion at all. Ambassador carried our message to your council. We showed him our power. We gave him evidence that could not be. We asked only to be left alone, and still you came. This is impossible, Vex whispered. You cannot be here. You cannot. You do not understand what is possible, Sarah interrupted. Your species has existed for 2,000 years. Mine has existed for 2 million. You have conquered 200 worlds. We have walked between galaxies. You believe your fleet is powerful. We could unmake your entire civilization with a thought. She stepped closer to Vex. He could see age in her eyes, endless age, the weight of watching species rise and fall like waves on a shore. We did not want this. We have spent 12,000 years trying to forget what we once were. We built a paradise beneath our oceans. We raised our children to know peace. We watched your civilizations develop and hoped you would be better than us. Instead, you proved that the young are always the same, always hungry, always afraid, always reaching for weapons you cannot control. Then destroy us, Vex said, forcing steel into his voice. If you are so powerful, end it. Sarah shook her head. No, we have destroyed enough today. We choose a different path. She raised her hand. Every ship in the fleet lurched. The stars outside the blurred and shifted. Vex felt reality bend around him like a soap bubble. When his vision cleared, he was looking at his own. His flagship hung in orbit above the capital city. Around him, the other ships of the coalition had reappeared above their own worlds, scattered across the galaxy. An instant, every weapon system was fused, every drive was disabled, every ship was a floating tomb capable only of life support and basic communication. Sarah's voice echoed in his mind one final time. Go home, General. Tell your people what happened here. Tell the galaxy that we showed mercy once more. And deliver this message to every species that sails between the stars. We are watching. We have always been watching. Come to Earth in peace and we will welcome you. Come in war and you will cease to exist. This is our final warning. There will be no others. Then she was gone, and Vex was alone with the ruins of his ambitions, staring at a world that had just learned how small it truly was. The galaxy changed after that day. It changed slowly the way mountains change, but it changed completely. General Vex lived for another 40 years. He never commanded troops again. He spent his remaining days in a small house on a quiet moon, writing his memoirs and answering questions from historians who wanted to understand what had happened above Earth. He told the same story 1,000 times. He never embellished it. He never tried to make himself look better. He simply described what he had seen and felt and learned. I was a fool, he would say. We all were. We looked at the stars and saw resources To be claimed, we looked at other species and saw threats to be eliminated, or tools to be used. We never imagined that something might be watching us the way we watched insects. We never considered that our entire civilization might be nothing more than a child's game compared to what had come before. The coalition dissolved immediately. After the failed invasion, none of the participating species wanted to be associated with the disaster. Military budgets were slashed across the galaxy. The age of expansion gave way to an age of reflection. Elder became the most respected voice in the Galactic Council. His warnings, once ignored, were now treated as prophecy. He helped draft new laws governing contact with Earth. The Sol system was declared sacred space, marked on every star chart with a symbol that meant danger beyond comprehension. Ships were forbidden from approaching within 2 light years of the yellow sun, but knew that laws alone would not be enough. Fear fades, memories grow distant. In 100 years, 1,000 years, some ambitious young species would convince itself that the stories were exaggerated. They would send ships to Earth, certain that they could succeed. Where others had failed, so did something unprecedented. He contacted the humans directly. He sent a message to Earth using the oldest communication frequencies his species knew. It was a simple message, just a few words. I am Elder of the Galactic Council. I wish to speak with you. I wish to understand. The response came 3 days later. A set of coordinates appeared in his personal data files along with instructions for reaching them safely. Traveled alone, telling no one where he was going. The coordinates led to a small station at the edge of the Sol system, hidden in the shadow of a frozen moon. When shuttle docked, he found Sarah waiting for him. You are braver than most, she said, or more curious. I'm not sure which. I am old, replied. I have watched civilizations rise and fall for longer than most species exist, but I have never encountered anything like humanity. I need to understand what you are. I need to understand why you hide when you could rule. Sarah led him into the station. It was small and simple, nothing like the underground paradise had described. Just a few rooms with basic furnishings clearly designed for meetings like this one. We hide because we remember, Sarah said. Every human child learns the history of our war. They see the recordings of burning worlds. They study the names of the species we destroyed. They understand what we are capable of, and they are taught to feel shame for it. Shame, the greatest weapon against tyranny, is memory. We cannot forget what we did. We cannot pretend it was necessary or justified. We carry our sins with us always, and that weight keeps us humble. It reminds us that power means nothing if it is used to cause suffering. Considered her words carefully, and yet you could still choose to conquer. Shame might fade. New generations might reject the old lessons. Some have tried, Sarah admitted over there have been factions who wanted to return to the old ways. They believed that humanity's purpose was to rule, to guide the younger species toward a better future. We stop them. We will always stop them, because we know what that path leads to. What do you want from the galaxy? Truly, Sarah was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer than before. We want what we have always wanted, to live in peace, to raise our children, to create beauty and knowledge and love, to tend our gardens and watch the stars. We do not want to rule you. We do not want to destroy you, we simply want to exist, quietly in our corner of the universe. And if we cannot leave you alone, then we will defend ourselves. We will do it. With sorrow rather than anger, we will do it knowing that every life we take is a failure of our own efforts to find another way, but we will do it because the alternative is the extinction of our species, and we have decided that we deserve to survive. Nodded slowly. I believe I understand. You are not gods or demons. You are simply people who have lived long enough to learn the lessons that the rest of us are still struggling with. Yes, Sarah said, that is exactly what we are. They talked for several hours. More, Sarah answered his questions, honestly sharing details about human history that had never been revealed to outsiders. She spoke of the Golden Age, before the war, when humanity had spread across the cosmos and built wonders beyond imagination. She spoke of the war itself, the horror and the loss and the desperate struggle for survival. She spoke of the long recovery, the building of new society, the slow process of learning to trust themselves again. When finally departed, he carried with him a gift, a small crystal containing recordings of human music, art, and literature. Sarah asked him to share it with the galaxy so that other species might know humanity as more than a terrifying warning. We are not just destroyers, she said, we are creators. Too, we have made beautiful things. We have loved deeply and mourned greatly and hoped endlessly. We are flawed and broken and magnificent, just like every other thinking being in this universe. Perhaps if others can see that, they will understand why we choose to hide. Perhaps they will respect our wish to be left alone. Shared the crystal. Its content spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Species who had never seen humans marveled at their music and wept at their poetry. The terror of Earth became mixed with wonder. The monsters revealed themselves to be artists, philosophers, dreamers. 1,000 years passed. The galaxy evolved. Wars still happened, but they were smaller now, more contained. The example of humanity hung over every conflict, a reminder of what unchecked aggression could become. The Sol system remained sacred and untouched. Occasionally, ships in distress near the quarantine zone would find themselves mysteriously saved. Their crews would wake up in safe ports, their damage repaired, their lives preserved by hands they never saw. Rumors spread of human vessels appearing at moments of crisis, offering aid and then vanishing before they could be thanked. Some said the humans had changed. Some said they were becoming more active in galactic affairs, working behind the scenes to prevent disasters and guide younger species away from the mistakes they had made. Others insisted that the stories were just stories, that humanity remained isolated and silent in their hidden paradise. The truth, as always, lay somewhere in between, in the deep chambers beneath Earth's oceans. The Council of Humanity met to discuss the future. They argued and debated and voted on policies that would shape the galaxy for generations to come. Should they reveal themselves? Should they intervene more directly? Should they finally take their place among the stars? The vote was always the same. Not yet, perhaps not ever. The galaxy was young and wild and full of potential. It needed to make its own mistakes and learn its own lessons. Humanity would watch and wait and protect when necessary. And perhaps someday, when the younger species had grown wise enough to understand, humanity would emerge from The shadows, perhaps they would share their knowledge and their technology and their hard-won wisdom. Perhaps they would lead the galaxy into a golden age that would make their ancient empire seem small by comparison. But that day was not today. Today, humanity tended their gardens and raised their children and remembered their dead. Today they watched the stars and hoped and dreamed. And in every corner of the galaxy, every species that looked up at the night sky knew the truth that their ancestors had learned through blood and terror. They were not alone. They had never been alone, and somewhere in the darkness, ancient guardians watched over them all, hoping they would never have to use their terrible power again. The Draconians had learned the truth through destruction. They Snorts had learned it through mercy. The rest of the galaxy learned it through stories passed down through generations. Earth was not a mystery to be solved. It was a warning and a promise, a reminder of what power could become and a hope for what wisdom might achieve. And as long as the stars burned, humanity would be there waiting in the shadows, the monsters that monsters feared, the protectors who asked for nothing in return except the simple gift of being left in peace.